My name is Noelle Carter. I'm 34 years old, and I've always believed that if you build your life carefully enough, nothing really falls apart without warning. Not overnight, not without signs. I work as a project manager for a commercial construction firm in Nashville. My days run on structure, timelines, budgets, contingency plans. I don't like chaos. I don't leave things unresolved. I don't gamble on uncertainty. And for the longest time, I thought my relationship reflected that same stability. Marcus Hale is 31. Charismatic in a way that draws people in without effort. The kind of man who doesn't try to be the center of attention, but somehow always is. He works in event marketing. Fast-paced, social, constantly surrounded by people. We had been together for 4 years, living somewhere between independent and intertwined. He didn't officially move in, but he had a key. Clothes in my closet, his coffee mug in my cabinet, his routine slowly blending into mine. We were building something, or at least I thought we were. We got engaged last spring. Not impulsively, not under pressure. I had spent months thinking about it, planning it, making sure it was right. Because to me, commitment isn't something you test. It's something you decide. We had a venue booked, deposits paid, save the dates already sent to close family. Everything was moving forward in a way that felt solid, predictable, safe. From the outside, we probably looked like the couple who had everything figured out. But cracks don't always show up as explosions. Sometimes they start as silence. About 2 months ago, Marcus changed. Not dramatically, not in a way you could point to immediately. Just subtle shifts, shorter replies, canceled plans, little arguments over things that didn't used to matter. If I asked what was wrong, he'd sigh like I was exhausting him. "You're overthinking again, Noelle. I'm just tired. Can we not do this tonight?" It wasn't one moment. It was a pattern, and patterns don't lie. Then one night, he came over, later than usual. He didn't kiss me when he walked in, didn't ask how my day was. He just sat down at my kitchen table like he was preparing for something. I remember the way his fingers tapped lightly against the surface. Not nervous. Impatient. "I think I need some space," he said. Just like that. No buildup, no hesitation. Space. I didn't react right away. Not outwardly. "What does that mean?" I asked, keeping my voice level. He exhaled, like the question itself was inconvenient. "I don't know, I feel confused." "About what?" "About us." That word landed heavier than anything else. Us. I studied his face, looking for something. Guilt, regret, even fear. There was none. Just distance. "Confused how?" I asked. He leaned back in the chair, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know if I rushed into things, if I'm ready for all of this." That caught my attention. Because if there was anyone who had pushed timelines, it wasn't me. It was him. He was the one sending me venue ideas, the one talking about guest lists, honeymoon destinations, timelines. Now suddenly, he felt rushed. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just asked the one question that mattered. "Is there someone else?" He reacted instantly. Offended. "Wow, really? That's where your mind goes?" It's a simple question. It's an insulting question. He stood up. Pacing now, frustration building in his voice. "I told you I'm confused. Why does that automatically mean there's someone else?" "Because it usually does." But I didn't say that out loud. Instead, I held his gaze. "Then what does space look like?" I asked. "Practically." "I don't know," he said quickly. "I just need time to think." Time. To think. About whether he wanted to be with me. I nodded slowly. "I'm not going to beg you to stay, Marcus," I said. "If you need space, you can take it. But I'm not sitting in limbo indefinitely." He rolled his eyes. "You're being dramatic." "No," I said quietly. "I'm being clear." That seemed to irritate him more than anything. He grabbed his overnight bag without another word. And just like that, he left. No hug, no reassurance. Just distance. 2 days later, I found out what space actually meant. Not from him, from someone else. A mutual friend sent me a screenshot. No context, just an image. It was Marcus's Instagram story. Close friends list. Apparently, I wasn't on that anymore. The photo was taken at a rooftop bar downtown. I recognized it immediately. I had taken him there for our anniversary last year. Across the table from him was Elena, his ex-girlfriend, the one he always described as a phase, the one he said he had outgrown, the one who was supposed to be ancient history. The caption read, "Some things just feel familiar. 72 hours. That's how long it took for space to turn into that. I didn't call him right away. I waited until the next morning. I wanted my voice steady, controlled. When he answered, he sounded annoyed. "What?" No hello, no hesitation, just irritation. "Are you back with Elena?" I asked. Silence. Then a long exhale. It's not like that. What is it like? I told you I needed space. And space means seeing her? I'm allowed to see whoever I want, Noelle. There it was. Not denial, just justification. So you were already talking to her, I said. I'm reconnecting, he corrected quickly. Reconnecting. Like they were colleagues. Like there wasn't history there. Did reconnecting include telling her you're engaged? I asked. That's when his tone snapped. I don't twist this. I'm asking a direct question. You're the one who pushed me to question everything, he shot back. That was new. Apparently, asking if there was someone else counted as pushing him. I let that sit for a moment. Then I said something simple. If you're exploring something with your ex, you're not my fiancé anymore. He went quiet again, but not guilty. Annoyed. You're being extreme. No, I said calmly. I'm being clear. Marcus didn't answer immediately. I could hear faint traffic on his end of the line, the kind of muffled city noise that told me he wasn't at home. Maybe he was outside Elena's building. Maybe he was leaving that rooftop bar again. Maybe he was somewhere else entirely. The point was, I no longer trusted the answer. You don't get to decide what I am while you're acting like this, he finally said. That's funny, I replied. Because you seemed very comfortable deciding I should wait while you figure out whether your past feels better than your future. He scoffed. That's not what this is. Then explain it. Another pause. He hated being asked to define things. Marcus liked fog. Fog gave him room to move. Fog let him say one thing to me, another thing to Elena, and something softer to his mother when he needed sympathy. I don't know what I want, he said. That was the first honest sentence he had given me. It still hurt, not because uncertainty is always cruel, because he had waited until deposits were paid, invitations were discussed, families were involved, and my life had already bent around his promises. You don't know what you want, I repeated quietly. I'm confused. About me? About everything. The word everything was a coward's shield. It sounded deep enough to excuse almost anything. Then he started talking about Elena, not directly at first. He circled her like he was afraid naming her too clearly would make the betrayal real. She reminds me of who I used to be, he said, before everything got so serious. I sat very still at my kitchen table, staring at the pale circle his coffee mug had left behind earlier that week. Before what got serious, I asked. Us, the wedding, the expectations. We're engaged, Marcus. Serious is not a surprise. He sighed like I was missing the point on purpose. With Elena, it's easy. Because she isn't planning a wedding with you. That's not fair. No, I said. What isn't fair is asking me to stay engaged to a man who's comparing me to his ex-girlfriend. He went quiet again. Then he said the sentence that changed something permanently inside me. I just need to know if I'm settling. Settling. It landed harder than the rooftop picture, harder than the caption, harder than the word reconnecting. Because reconnecting could be dressed up as confusion. Settling could not. Settling meant he had been looking at the life we built and wondering if it was beneath him. I breathed in slowly. What exactly do you think you're settling for? I asked. He didn't answer. That was answer enough. Instead, he said, I don't want to wake up 10 years from now wondering what if. So you'd rather burn down what you have now to revisit something you already left? You keep twisting everything. I'm listening very carefully. And I was. I listened to his breathing, to the small hesitations, to the way his voice sharpened whenever I refused to make his choices sound poetic. Then I asked the question I already knew I needed to ask. Have you slept with her? Silence. Not confusion. Not outrage. Silence. Then finally, that's not the point. My hand closed around the edge of the table. Not hard enough to shake. Just hard enough to keep myself still. That is the point, I said. Noelle, I won't compete with your past. You're being dramatic again. That word again. Dramatic. Every time I drew a boundary, he tried to rename it as emotion. Every time I asked for honesty, he treated it like control. Every time I stayed calm, he acted like my calmness was cruelty. You're giving me ultimatums instead of support, he said. Support would be helping you through fear, not standing quietly while you sleep with your ex. You don't understand how complicated this is. It isn't complicated, Marcus. It's just ugly. That finally got a reaction. He started talking over me, words spilling fast now. He said we could work through this. He said I was being rigid. He said real love required patience. He said I was proving exactly why he felt suffocated. And as he spoke, something in me settled. Not rage. Not panic. Clarity. A clean, cold kind of clarity. The kind you don't get when you're trying to win someone back. The kind you get when you stop trying to be chosen. If you're unsure whether I'm enough, I said, then I'm not your fiancé anymore. He kept talking. I didn't. I ended the call. Then I opened his contact. Blocked his number. Blocked him on Instagram. Blocked him on Facebook. Blocked him anywhere I could think of. No speech. No final paragraph. No emotional performance. Just silence. Because if Marcus needed space to decide whether he was settling, he could have all the space in the world. He just wouldn't have access to me inside it. For 3 days, there was nothing. No texts. No calls. No strange social media posts meant to reach me through other people. Just quiet. At first, the quiet hurt. I won't pretend it didn't. My house felt different without him in it. Not empty exactly. More like it was exhaling after holding its breath too long. His jacket still hung in the hallway closet. His razor was still in the bathroom drawer. There was a pair of shoes by the back door I kept staring at like they might explain something. They didn't. On the third night, I put everything of his into 2 boxes. Not angrily. Carefully. Shirts folded. Chargers wrapped. The watch he always misplaced tucked into a small pouch. I left the engagement photos on the bookshelf. Not because I wanted them there. Because I wasn't ready to touch the version of myself inside them yet. On the 4th day, his mother called. I stared at her name on my screen for a few seconds before answering. Hello? Noelle, what on earth is going on? Her tone wasn't worried. It was accusatory, like I had misplaced her son. I leaned against the kitchen counter. Marcus is exploring something with Elena, I said. I removed myself from the situation. That is not what he told me. I'm sure it isn't. She inhaled sharply. He is confused. Wedding stress does that to people. You know how emotional men can get when they feel pressured. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because the excuses were already arriving dressed as concern. If he's confused, I said, he shouldn't be engaged. You're punishing him. No, I'm responding to what he chose. He said you blocked him. I did. That's heartless. There it was. Heartless. A word people use when your boundary inconveniences their preferred ending. Marcus slept with his ex-girlfriend while still engaged to me, I said evenly. His mother went quiet for half a second. Then she recovered. You don't know the whole story. I know enough. Real love doesn't shut down when things get messy. Real love doesn't ask one person to wait while the other test drives an old relationship. She didn't like that. Her voice tightened. You're throwing away 4 years because of insecurity. No, I said. I'm refusing to compete. She hung up on me. I stood there with the phone still in my hand, staring at my reflection in the dark kitchen window. I expected to cry. I didn't. Maybe that part was already done. 2 days later, Marcus showed up at my house, unannounced. He knocked like he still belonged there. When I opened the door, he looked irritated more than devastated. His hair was slightly messy, his jaw tight, his eyes restless. Why did you block me? He demanded. Because you're not my fiancé. His face hardened. Don't do that. Do what? Act cold. I didn't step aside. He glanced past me into the house like he expected entry by habit. I stayed where I was. Is it true? I asked. His expression shifted. What? That you slept with her. He looked away, and in that small movement, whatever thin thread remained between us snapped. It just happened, he said, like gravity had pulled him into her bed, like choice had never been involved. I looked at his left hand. The ring I had given him was still there. A simple band he had once said made him feel proud. Now it looked like evidence. Take it off, I said. His eyes snapped back to mine. You're really going to end this like this? Yes. Noelle, come on. Take it off. He stared at me for a long moment, waiting for my face to soften. It didn't. Finally, he pulled the ring from his finger. He didn't hand it to me gently. He dropped it onto the entryway table like it was something useless. You're heartless, he said. I picked up the ring, closed my fingers around it. Then I closed the door. I thought that was the end of it. Clean break, clear line, no room for interpretation. I underestimated how messy things get when someone expects you to stay available, even after they've already left. About a week later, I started hearing things. Not directly. Through the kind of people who don't mean to gossip, but don't know how to hold information either. Marcus hadn't landed where he thought he would. From what I was told, Elena didn't react the way he expected when things became real. He had gone to her thinking familiarity meant safety. That history meant access. That if he showed up fully, no ring, no engagement, no obligations, she would meet him there. She didn't. Apparently, she thought he was just passing through. A temporary detour. Something easy. Not permanent. Not serious. And when he showed up with an overnight bag and no hesitation, she pulled back. Hard. She didn't sign up for that, a mutual friend told me carefully over the phone. She thought he was just blowing off steam. I leaned against my living room wall, listening without reacting. And when she realized he'd actually ended things with you, the friend continued, She got uncomfortable. Of course she did. Being chosen is flattering. Being responsible for what someone destroyed to choose you is something else entirely. Marcus had miscalculated. He thought he was stepping into something familiar. Instead, he stepped into a version of himself Elena didn't want. Too available. Too serious. Too inconvenient. And when she pulled away, he did what people like Marcus always do when their backup plan collapses. He reached backward. Toward me. It started with blocked numbers. The first call came late at night. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. Silence. Then his voice. Noelle? I hung up immediately. Blocked it. The second number came the next morning. I didn't answer. Blocked. The third came through that same evening. I stared at the screen longer that time. Not because I was tempted to answer. Because I was measuring something inside myself. There was no pull. No curiosity. No what if. Just confirmation. I blocked that one too. Then came the email. A new address. Simple subject line. Can we talk? I opened it. Not because I wanted to engage. Because I wanted to see how he would frame it. The message was short. You're really just going to let everything go like this? That wording. Let everything go. As if I was the one who had loosened my grip. As if he hadn't already walked away first. I closed the email. Didn't reply. Deleted it. Silence is a language people don't expect you to speak fluently. And Marcus was not fluent in it. A few days later, his mother called again. Different tone this time. Less sharp. More urgent. Noelle, we need to talk. Oh, we don't. Please, she said quickly. It's not what you think. I almost smiled at that. Because that sentence always comes after everything is exactly what you think. Marcus is confused, she continued. He didn't mean for things to escalate like this. Escalate, I repeated. You mean ending an engagement and sleeping with his ex? You're being harsh. I'm being accurate. She exhaled, frustration bleeding into her voice. He thought you would fight for him. There it was. That expectation again. Not accountability. Not remorse. Performance. He thought I would argue. Plead. Compete. Make it difficult for him to leave. Instead, I made it easy. And that unsettled him. I don't compete with other women for someone who's already made a choice, I said. You're giving up on him. I'm accepting what he already did. She shifted tactics. He's hurting. So am I said calmly. The difference is I didn't cause it. That didn't land well. He said you shut him out, she pressed. That you didn't support him when he was struggling. I let that sit in the space between us. Support. An interesting word. You mean when he told me he was confused and then slept with someone else, I asked? That's not how he explained it. I'm sure it isn't. Her voice tightened. You're being very cold, Noelle. No, I said. I'm being consistent. Silence. Then she said something that clarified everything. If you softened a little, this could still be fixed. Fixed. Like this was a miscommunication. Like something got misplaced and just needed to be returned. There's nothing to fix, I said. She exhaled sharply. You're going to regret this. I won't. And I meant it. That certainty surprised even me. Because 6 weeks ago, the idea of losing Marcus would have felt like something collapsing. Now it felt like something revealing itself. 2 days after that call, he showed up again. Not at my house. At my office. I had just finished the long day. Budget meetings, contractor calls, the kind of work that requires focus you don't always have but force yourself into anyway. When I stepped into the parking lot, I saw him leaning against his car, waiting. That was new. Marcus didn't wait. He expected. As I walked closer, he straightened. We need to talk. We've talked. Not like this. Like what? Like adults who don't throw each other away. I stopped a few feet from him. The air between us felt different now. Not tense. Just finished. You chose to leave the relationship, I said. I chose not to wait while you figured out if you preferred someone else. I made a mistake. Yes, I said, you did. He flinched slightly. Not at the words. At the lack of softness behind them. You're not even going to try to understand, he asked. I understand perfectly. Then why are you acting like this? Like what? Like I don't matter anymore. I held his gaze. You made sure of that. That landed. Harder than anything else I had said. His jaw tightened. You're going to regret not fighting for me, he said. There it was again. That script. That expectation that love should look like resistance. Like competition. Like proving worth under pressure. I shook my head slightly. You wanted to know if you were settling, I said. Now you know. He stared at me like I had crossed a line. Maybe I had, but not the kind that could be uncrossed. That's when his expression shifted. Not to anger, to something else. Something sharper. Everyone thinks I ruined everything, he said. And there it was. The real issue, not loss. Not regret. Reputation. I didn't respond, because there was nothing to say to that. He took a step closer. You could fix that. How? Tell people it wasn't like that. Tell them we both had doubts. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was predictable. You want me to lie? I said. I want you to stop making me look like the bad guy. You handled that on your own. His face hardened again. You're unbelievable. No, I said quietly. I'm just not available anymore. He stood there for a second longer, like he was waiting for something. A crack, a hesitation, a version of me that no longer existed. He didn't find it. So he got back into his car and drove away. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. Because when people can't regain control privately, they start trying to control the story publicly. It started small, subtle enough that if I hadn't been paying attention, I might have missed it. A mutual friend called me one evening, her voice hesitant, in a way that told me she didn't want to be in the middle, but already was. Can I ask you something? She said. Go ahead. There was a pause. Then, were you controlling toward Marcus? I didn't answer immediately. Not because I was offended, because I was tracing the origin of the question. Questions like that don't appear on their own. They're planted. Why would you ask that? I said calmly. He's just been saying things, she replied carefully. That you pressured him into timelines, that you didn't give him space, that when he told you he was confused, you shut him out instead of supporting him. I leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling. There it was. The narrative, reframed just enough to make him sound overwhelmed, instead of unfaithful. He was wearing my ring when he reconnected with Elena, I said. Silence. Then a quiet, oh. I didn't elaborate. I didn't need to. Truth doesn't require decoration when people are actually willing to hear it. But Marcus wasn't done. A few days later, I got tagged in a post. Not directly. The kind of vague, performative post meant to say everything without naming anything. Some people only love you conditionally. The second you show vulnerability, they disappear. No names. No details. But anyone who knew us knew. The comments filled quickly. You deserve better. He sounds insecure. Stay strong. I read through them once. Then I took a screenshot. Not to respond. Just to document. 'Cause stories shift over time. And I don't trust people who rewrite history when it becomes inconvenient. I didn't comment. Didn't message him. Didn't defend myself. Silence makes people uncomfortable when they're trying to provoke a reaction. And Marcus needed reactions. Without them, his version of events had nowhere to land. But he kept pushing. A few days later, his mother called again. Different number this time. I almost didn't answer. But something in me wanted to hear how far this would go. Noelle, she said immediately, her tone tight. You're humiliating him. I haven't said anything publicly. That's the problem, she snapped. People are asking questions. You're just letting him take the fall alone. I blinked slowly, letting him take the fall, as if I had pushed him, as if I had orchestrated anything beyond stepping out of the way. I'm not discussing private matters online, I said. You could clear this up. By lying? By being fair, she corrected quickly. Tell them you both had doubts, that it was mutual. There it was again. Optics, not truth, not accountability, just image control. I'm not participating in a version of events that protects his ego, I said. Her voice sharpened instantly. You're cruel. I almost smiled. That word again. Cruel. It seems to surface every time someone refuses to absorb consequences for someone else. If Marcus wants to clarify anything, I added, he's free to. You know he won't. That's not my responsibility. She exhaled sharply, frustration cracking through. He's hurting. So am I. That's different. Not really. The line went quiet for a moment. Then she said something that made everything click into place. If you cared about him at all, you'd fix this narrative. There it was. Not about healing. Not about closure. About control. About making sure the story didn't damage him more than necessary. I'm not fixing anything, I said calmly. I didn't break it. She hung up. This time, I didn't hesitate. I blocked the number. Then I blocked her on everything else. Phone, email, social media. Not out of anger, out of containment. Because once someone starts lobbying for narrative control, it stops being a relationship issue. It becomes a campaign. And I don't participate in campaigns about my own life. The next escalation came faster than I expected. Marcus showed up again. This time, at my office parking lot. Again. But this time, he didn't wait quietly. He stepped directly in front of my car as I approached. We need to talk. His voice was sharper now, less pleading, more demanding. We've talked, I said. No, he snapped. You shut me out. I set a boundary. That's not a boundary, Noelle. That's punishment. I tilted my head slightly. Blocking someone who slept with their ex while engaged is punishment? You keep throwing that in my face. I keep acknowledging reality. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing now. This isn't how people who love each other act. You're right, I said. It isn't. That stopped him. For a second. Then his expression hardened. You're acting like I betrayed you beyond repair. I held his gaze. You did. Silence. Real silence this time. Not defensive. Not argumentative. Just uncomfortable. You didn't even give me a chance to fix it, he said finally. You had a chance before you did it. That landed. I saw it. The flicker of something. Maybe regret. Maybe frustration at being cornered by something he couldn't talk his way out of. Oh, you're going to regret this, he said again. Quieter this time. I won't. You're just going to let everything go? 4 years? You let it go first. His jaw tightened. That's not fair. It's accurate. He stared at me, searching for something. Anything. A reason to believe this wasn't final. But there wasn't one. Because this wasn't about anger anymore. Or heartbreak. It was about alignment. And we were no longer aligned in anything that mattered. Then he said the thing that finally stripped away any remaining illusion. Everyone thinks I ruined my own engagement. I exhaled slowly. There it was again. Not I hurt you. Not nor I made a mistake. Reputation. I'm not responsible for what people think, I said. You could change it. I won't. His eyes flashed with frustration. You're unbelievable. No, I said quietly. I'm just done. That word hung between us. Done. Not angry. Not dramatic. Final. He stood there for another second. Then he stepped back. And this time, he didn't try again. Because I think finally, he understood something. There was no version of this where I came back. And without that option, he had nothing left to negotiate. After that, something shifted. Not in a dramatic, explosive way. Just quietly. Like a structure finally giving way after weeks of invisible stress. I didn't have to defend myself. That was the part I hadn't expected. Because usually, when someone starts shaping a narrative, you feel this instinct to correct it, to explain, to fill in the gaps before someone else does it for you. But I didn't, and somehow, the truth moved anyway. Slow at first, then all at once. It started with small questions, mutual friends reaching out, not with accusations this time, but curiosity. Wait, he was still engaged when he went back to Elena? Yes, I replied. No long explanation. No emotional language. Just the fact. Facts don't need volume. They just need consistency. And consistency spreads. Then Elena stepped back completely. From what I heard, she didn't want to be attached to the situation anymore. Not publicly, not privately. Being the woman someone reconnects with is one thing. Being the reason an engagement collapses is something else entirely. So she distanced herself. No more photos. No more appearances. No more subtle captions. Just absence. Marcus lost her the same way he lost me, only faster. Then his own circle started shifting. His friends, people who had initially echoed his version, started connecting details. The timeline didn't hold. The language didn't match the facts. And once doubt enters a story, it spreads faster than any explanation. One afternoon, a mutual friend called me again. Her voice was different this time. Less cautious. More certain. He told people you pressured him into everything, she said. But that doesn't really line up with what I'm hearing now. It doesn't, I said. I think people are starting to realize that. I nodded, even though she couldn't see it. I'm not trying to convince anyone, I said. They can decide for themselves. And they did. That's the thing about truth. It doesn't need to be forced. It just needs space. Marcus tried to hold on to the narrative a little longer. A few more vague posts. A few more carefully worded conversations. But it didn't land the same way anymore. Because once people see the cracks, they can't unsee them. Then came the moment everything fully unraveled for him. Not because of me. Because of his own words. He posted a photo one afternoon. Nothing dramatic. Just him at the gym. But the caption said, "Don't burn bridges unless you're ready to swim alone." It was meant to sound reflective. Detached. Wise even. But it did something he didn't expect. It confirmed everything. People started asking questions directly under the post. Wait, weren't you engaged? What happened to the wedding? Didn't you just get back with your ex? No one was vague anymore. No one was guessing. They were asking. Out loud. Publicly. And Marcus didn't answer. He couldn't. Because any answer would have required clarity. And clarity wasn't something he had handled well from the beginning. After that, things went quiet. Not performative silence. Real silence. No more posts. No more indirect messages. No more attempts to reach me through new numbers or mutual friends. Just absence. I heard through someone else that he was moving out of his apartment. Downsizing. Apparently, the wedding deposits weren't refundable. Some of the vendors still required final payments. Contracts don't care about confusion. They don't adjust for indecision. They just hold. And when everything collapsed, those costs didn't disappear. They stayed. A reminder that choices don't just affect feelings. They affect reality. His mother didn't contact me again. Not after I blocked everything. Not after it became clear there was nothing left to negotiate. The last message I ever received about him came through a mutual friend. She said she didn't think you'd actually walk away. I sat with that for a long time. Not because it hurt. Because it explained everything. Marcus didn't think I would leave. He thought I was stable enough to wait. Loyal enough to tolerate. Patient enough to be compared. He thought I would compete. And when I didn't, the entire structure of his decisions collapsed. It's been 6 weeks now. 6 weeks since I blocked his mother. 6 weeks since I deleted that last email. 6 weeks of silence. Real silence. The kind that doesn't feel empty. The kind that feels earned. His things are gone. The boxes disappeared sometime after I left them by the door. I didn't watch him pick them up. I didn't need to. The engagement photos are still on the shelf. I haven't taken them down yet. Not because I'm holding on. Because I'm not rushing the process of letting go either. Some things deserve to be acknowledged before they're erased. I've thought about everything more times than I can count. Replayed conversations. Not to question my decision, but to understand it. And every time I land in the same place. He asked for space. I gave it to him. He used that space to step outside the relationship. I responded by stepping out completely. There was no overreaction. No cruelty. Just alignment between action and consequence. People called me cold, rigid, heartless. But here's the truth. If I had stayed, I would have taught him that I was willing to be an option. If I had argued, I would have taught him that loyalty was negotiable. If I had softened, I would have taught him that boundaries could be bent under pressure. Instead, I closed the door. And when everything unraveled for him, I didn't have to lift a finger. Because once someone shows you they see you as something they can compare, there's nothing left to negotiate. There's only the choice to stay. Or the strength to leave. I left. And I haven't regretted it once.